Hello, and welcome back to my Fire Emblem 8 Ephraim Reverse Recruitment LTC, brought to you by Typhoon Carter. Today we have Chapter 16. Now, with Chapter 16, it is a Seas map, and we give Amelia the body ring and Cormac the boots. These two stat boosters will come in pretty handy, and we also gotta promote some people. The first of these promotions we gotta do is Inez. Inez will promote into Ranger. Now, the extra movement along with the longbow will be very handy in Chapter 18. And it is the primary reason why we trained him this whole time. The other unit we will promote is Knoll for summoning purposes, which will be pretty important for Chapter 18 as well. Knoll with his summoning abilities can't summon heroes like it's Fae. But that aside, this chapter is interesting, and much like Chapter 15, the players' starting position changes depending on which route you chose. And also, like 15, some of the enemies are changed. One of these notable changes is that some of the enemies in Orson's throne room is changed. In Erica route, there are sages and heroes that are guarding Orson's room. But on Ephraim route, we have swordmasters and druids that are in the room. And the other notable thing is that on Ephraim route, we start on the bottom left corner of the map instead of the bottom right in Erica route. This means that the map naturally has a higher turn floor on Ephraim route, which is generally why in pure LTC, Erica route is the preferred route. Anyways, what we do here is Natasha warps Cormac, and she hits 22 magic, which will be pretty handy. And Cormac with the boots has just enough to get Amelia in a position to seize for next turn. Now, we also gave Amelia the body ring as stated earlier, so that she can double the swordmasters who are pretty fast, as the body ring offsets some of her low con. Normally when you put the body ring on a mounted unit, for the 2 constitution they gain, they also lose 2 aid. But for Amelia, there's no one that she really needs to rescue, so this is okay. And unfortunately, we couldn't quite get Purge on this map because of the fact that we don't have a secondary warper at this time. But instead, what we are focusing here is building up Saleh's staff rank. Now, we have him spam silence on a warrior even though that really doesn't do anything, because of the fact that silence gives the most possible weapon experience that we can get at a 5, which is about as much as Torch. Now on this enemy phase, this is a pretty reliable enemy phase that we don't really have to worry about anything on here. Orson himself is pretty bulky, and we do need Pierce to like help us get some kills or a crit, but regardless, point still stands. And everyone else that we deploy are just mostly self-improving and just filler stuff. In reality, like Franz, a lot of the other units that I brought, like we don't really need them. Now, this is where the body ring comes in handy, as Amelia is able to 1-round KO the swordmasters with a silver lance. The silver lance weighs her down normally, but the body ring offsets some of the speed penalty that Amelia would take from using a silver lance, which comes in really handy. The female units in GBA naturally have lower con than males due to the way the formula works, as aid and con for males combined is 25, while females it's 20. And then we have Cormac here get a pretty easy kill on Orson. Pretty straightforward rig, nothing too complicated per se. one thing to note is that we could have gotten the Purge if we had La Rochelle at Warp, but we didn't really focus on La Rochelle for this run, mainly because I was pretty skeptical of whether or not she can reach the necessary thresholds for warping in chapter 20, which was probably my biggest worry and my biggest skepticism, which is why I didn't really bother training her for warp. But regardless, Sally here, he's just spamming his staffs. Now Tethys here dances Sally just so we can like keep working on his staff rank. Although later on I find out that he had a 1 or 2 turn buffer by the time he reached warp. But I decided to have Cyrene get a kill with Audhumla just to like show off the S rank weapon, even though it doesn't really have too much practical use. And then here I'm just giving Natasha a kill so that she can get some experience. And also so that I can just get her as much magic as possible. And then we have Sally here use a barrier use, just because like it doesn't really matter and it's pretty laxed for late game. And that is chapter 16 cleared in 2 turns. Now we have a scripted event here and we decline both of the promotions. Amelia in particular, her promotion actually gives her less move. So that's why we do that. And we get the Sigmund and the Siegelin, which is now a Dragonstone. Anyways, moving on to the next chapter. Now we have chapter 17. Chapter 17 is an interesting map in theory, but in reality it's really not all that interesting, especially when you factor in the fact that warp exists. And the quote-unquote side objective here isn't really that hard for it to even be called a side objective, because we have NPC civilians that need to be saved on this map. And when you save all the NPCs on the map, you get the rescue staff, which will be very important for chapter 18. And the map objective here is kill boss, which makes the map really straightforward and nothing really complicated per se. Now, knowing this, we don't really bring too many people here just for the sake of time, and just so that I don't really have to waste too much time with the suspense. Amelia, we just like let her get another level just for like later on. And Cyrene here is just getting a little bit of action because we can. And Sally, we're just gonna have him spam stuff. So he uses a barrier, and then Natasha has enough warp range where we don't need to dance for Cormac to get him to reach the boss, Leon, who is like a total joke at this point in the game. And we break the silence here because the silence is only really there to build up staff XP. We also get Seth, who is an NPC, but Seth sadly isn't really any good at this point. And then we go for his trivial Pierce proc kill. Nothing too crazy, and that is chapter 17 cleared in 1 turn. And with this chapter's conclusion, we get the Vidofnir, which is a sacred weapon and will be pretty handy. And we also get the Nidhogg, which just sucks. Chapter 17, 1 turn. I will see you guys next time for chapter 18.